Alternative Dig Talk. Real issues, real talk.
Hey Ugandans, I'm Lieutenant Colonel Dewa Kiki, the Deputy Defense Spokesperson and actually the Deputy Spokesperson for the Uganda People's Defense Forces. I was hosted on Alternative Dig Talk. I encourage all Ugandans that this is the way to go. Always watch, participate, give your views and ask questions on Alternative Dig Talk. Dig Talk, the way to go.
You have got to get up pretty early to go do something. We are the Alternative Dig Talk. With our mobile studios, we are redefining TV presentation just as technology is setting the pace. We are blending our approach with fresh, perspectively designed breakfast show, The Mighty Drive, informative and entertainment show, exclusive and live interviews.
President Museveni wadde juzi namulaba apima akawunga kilo 2 tasobola kalya nini bwaba alya kilo 5 oyannema okuliisa eggwanga ne bwe limundekera.
Njagala kwebaza the Alternative Dig Talk etuwadde kano ka Mighty Drive era n'abatuwuliriza bonna abali ku mikutu njagala basaba mugendo mu maaso n'okuwuliriza.
All given to you just a click away on your phone, tablet, laptop and smart TVs as we are streaming live on our
Yes, good morning, our beloved viewers. First of all, we apologize for coming in late, but at last, definitely, we're here. We thank the Almighty Lord that has allowed us, regardless of the challenges, to say that we can the SOPs. Please wear a mask, kindly, if possible, social distance, and at least if you don't have something to do in town or in the congregation or in the gatherings, please, we beg kindly, stay at home. Some colleagues like us in Busoga people booze. By this time around, that liquor, that alcohol, don't just take it, don't just booze it, but you can use it to wash hands. And of course, like in Kampala here, we can sanitize, but for you maybe it can be expensive, but I understand you can access alcohol. So use that alcohol to wash your hands. Today we are lucky. We have a professor in the house, in the studios. Today we are in the studios. We are at his office to Makerere University. He has hosted us. We've been hosting him, but today he said, "Let me host you too," and so we are humbled and beloved. I'm working together with my co-host, the princess, Omumbejja, Luwedde Lilian. Let me ask her to say hi before our guest for today. Also say hi to all of us. Lilian, you are most welcome. Good morning.
Thank you. Good morning too. A very good morning to every one of you watching us live. This is the Mighty Drive. Yeah, my name is Princess Luwedde Lilian, and you're most welcome on the show. Yeah, I would like to remind you we're on Facebook. Our Facebook page is The Alternative Uganda. So if you have any question, you can go to the comment section, drop in your question. We're going to be reading it for you before we close the show. And then still you'll be able to get a chance to call in studios direct to ask any question, and then you're going to be answered by Professor himself. So let me go straight to Professor to say hello to our viewers, and then the show begins. You're most welcome. You're most welcome.
Thank you, and good morning to you, and good morning to the listeners and viewers out there. I am glad to be hosted again on this Mighty Drive today, and so that I and you, we can share some ideas to build this nation. Some people think ideas are just a waste of time, but it is not true. We need ideational innovation, and the ideas have developed nations, have developed society from the time of the Greeks and their ideas. You have heard of the Greek philosophers. You have heard in Europe there was a time when there was the age of enlightenment, and it is that age of enlightenment that partly contributed to industrial revolution and later to political revolutions like liberalism, democracy, and what have you. And maybe it is time Uganda or Africa also had a renaissance or a reformation or the age of enlightenment. Maybe that is what we skipped, and possibly that is why we are marking time and not moving. So I am glad that some of you thought about something like this in order to revolutionize ideas and move society ahead and shape society in a certain positive direction. Development or progress does not come by mere accident or does not just appear for this, that it has just appeared. It is engineered, it is fostered, it is promoted, and it seems as if even ideas precede technology. It is the excitement about ideas, it is innovation in ideas that lead to innovation in technology. So I hope your Mighty Drive will make a contribution towards an ideational revolution in Uganda, so that we have innovative ideas that shape society positively one way or the other.
Right from there, let's go straight to, of course, we are time back, and we are glad that when we host people like you, at least who have seen, we can say it all. Because when you talk about books, at least you're well off. When you talk about age, we learn a lot from you. And now we have a new dilemma. We are in a new dilemma, a pandemic that none of us had ever expected. The coronavirus, the COVID-19, it has at least drafted the whole world. At least every country in the world at least can testify about its negative impact. Professor, where do you see the future, most especially Africa and Uganda in particular, after this pandemic?
Thank you. This pandemic I think one thing that will be positive about it is that we should learn lessons, unless we fail to learn lessons. You've heard that almost the whole world, apart from Africa, they have already vaccinated. And they developed their own vaccines. And for us here, we are just in vaccine hesitancy. We don't know what they have developed. We don't know whether it will kill us. We don't know whether it will take us which direction. So Africa is again behind in many, it has been behind in many respects. Now we are also behind in vaccination, in science and technology. So I've heard the president talking about his into limbo. We need to develop our own science and technology so that by now we should also be thinking of having our own vaccines. In some countries, they have reached 90% of vaccine coverage. In Uganda, we have not yet even reached, I don't know what percentage, because we are about 46, 47 million. They have not yet vaccinated even 1 million. And one thing that has defeated COVID-19 in some countries is basically vaccination. Drugs here.
Actually, every person is a doctor now, especially on social media.
Yeah, but we have to be scientific. Science means systematic development of knowledge. You just don't develop knowledge from nowhere. You must have a systematic way of developing knowledge and disseminating it. We are not going to accept any concoction which has not yet been approved and passed through certain processes. Science is about processes. But nevertheless, we should not discourage those people who have come up with some innovations, but let them also put them to the test. Let not those just people because they want money. I know, for example, this somebody who has come up with Covidex. But before it is talked about in terms of processes and approval, it is already on the market. People are paying 3,000 a dose, and then the other day it was 10,000. So you see somebody or some people who are just pursuing money, not pursuing solutions to problems of this world. But nevertheless, this is a wake-up call to the Africans that we should not be the ones lagging behind in science and technology. The Chinese have developed their vaccine. The Russians have done it. The Europeans have done, the Americans have done, the Indians, although they have not developed one, but they have the technology and means to adopt and adapt the other technologies. They are already using this AstraZeneca from Oxford, and they are producing it as a generic drug, at least for them. I wish even us, we had the capacity to have a generic drug such that by now we would be also producing AstraZeneca or Johnson & Johnson or whatever other brand here in Uganda. But it is really a challenge to Africa and Uganda that all the continents, I mean almost all continents, you hear the Asians, the Europeans, the Americans have developed vaccines, but here nothing. We are just waiting for other people to develop.
Donations from other countries.
And that's why we have not even yet vaccinated 1 million, just one out of 46. When you hear the people in Europe or America are no longer scared, it's because they have vaccinated more than half of the population.
Professor, has the government done enough in sensitizing people to go for vaccination?
This is laughable. There is no vaccine. Yes, at one time there was that vaccine hesitancy, and the people were not embracing it. When they embraced it, there was no vaccine. There is no vaccine as we talk today. Whether they sensitize people or not, there is no vaccine. Otherwise, when this new wave came up, at first people were reluctant to take up the vaccine because they thought maybe COVID was going down and sooner than later disappearing. But when there was this second wave, people have been driving miles and miles looking for the vaccine, and the vaccine disappeared.
It's because we were told the vaccinating essential workers, the frontline workers.
But even the frontline workers,
And
there is no vaccine.
The old age.
Makerere University is one of those which, because they are teachers, who were supposed to be vaccinated, and they embraced it. Makerere University embraced this vaccine, so they had the first dose. Now when they went for the second dose, halfway, the vaccine got finished. And the people are just waiting for other doses. And now these other doses which are coming, they are going to be very much competed for by those who have not had the vaccine and those who need the second jab. And when you don't get the second jab, the first jab actually is wasted.
And actually, it has timeline. Right?
It has a timeline, and it is going to be wasted because people had the first jab, but the vaccine is finished.
Before they take the second jab.
India is no longer exporting until they satisfy their population. And you see, you cannot jump from one vaccine to the other. If you took AstraZeneca, you don't go to Johnson & Johnson or these other brands from China or from Russia or from wherever. So I don't know whether the people who have already taken AstraZeneca, which needs a second jab, whether they will forget about that one and start on another one or whatever the case. I am told they are going to bring in some doses, but about 100,000, but we have 46 million. Those ones will just be a drop in the ocean. People will compete for them. There will be pressure. There will be all sorts of things, corruption, hoarding, and all that, because it's not enough.
Already there are speculations and allegations that some clinics of big people had already stolen some
yeah, it is not allegations. The police told us that they have already arrested people who were selling the vaccine illegally. And when they bring in these 100,000, because I think COVAX, this international framework organization, which is donating, has promised us, I think, 100,000 doses of AstraZeneca. I don't know, maybe this time from Oxford. But even the other time, I think part of it was from Oxford. But I think the government should have mobilized funds to do this vaccination. You see, we wasted time in elections. We used more than 1 trillion shillings during elections. And I'm told these drugs are not very expensive. About $17, you could buy those. Now, how much would we have bought using 1 trillion shillings that was used during elections to first address this pandemic and then move forward? You see, the pandemic effects are not only going to be health-wise only, but also economic.
Yeah.
When you know, the Ugandans do not know that our economy, 50%, there is a misconception among Ugandans. When you look at the different sectors of the economy, there are those who think agriculture is the biggest sector. Agriculture contributes between 22 and 23% to the GDP. The biggest sector is the services sector. It contributes more than 50%. Now, it is the one which has been hit most by this pandemic. You can, for example, talk about tourism, which is almost brought to zero. You can see transport has had challenges, very many challenges in that sector. So the pandemic is going to kill the economy as much as it is going to kill people. And therefore, if we were strategic planners and thinkers, we should have prioritized the vaccines rather than elections. And so by now, we probably would have vaccinated more than 5 million people. And once we do that, and especially those who are at most risk and can spread, supposing all students had been vaccinated, for example. That would be a long way, and there are just about 15 million students throughout the country. They could all have been vaccinated. And all essential workers, and essential workers are not only soldiers and doctors, but there are other various categories. You are talking about people who work in hotels, who work in markets. They are also essential workers in a way. You people in the media industry, if all those were vaccinated, and were vaccinated about 20 million people, would go a long way to reduce the spread, or at least to minimize the risks, and then the economy would continue booming. You can imagine Uganda has now been blacklisted. It's very, very unfortunate. On the travel advisories, some countries have said no more going to Uganda, including Rwanda here. Our neighbor, I'm told Abu Dhabi, I don't know, Saudi Arabia. The next thing we hear, it will be UK, it will be wherever. You can imagine Uganda, which didn't have a big, serious case of COVID-19, is now the one which is getting on the list, just because we relaxed. I have heard on radio some government official from a certain ministry, a minister of health, I don't know where, saying, oh, we are planning to go and buy the machine. I mean, are we planning to plan? The pandemic was here last year in March.
And the president said that the lockdown we had at first was to identify where the enemy was coming from.
Yes, now we knew the enemy where it was coming from. These different variants were there in Kenya. Not long ago, we knew it was coming. Now all the variants are here, the Indian variant, the South African, the UK. And then we are saying we are planning to go and buy a machine for producing oxygen. Really?
We became so reluctant.
I think it is lack of seriousness. It is lack of seriousness. After all, a machine for producing oxygen would not be wasted even if COVID was eliminated, because we need oxygen, whether COVID-19 or not, because it is necessary for other ailments when you are very sick in a hospital. So we relax. I think that is the inefficiency of the state. We have got a very weak state in terms of service delivery. You know, when we say we have a weak state, there are those who are in power who will say, no, we are not a weak state because we defeated Kony. The weakness of a state is not, or the strength of the state is not determined only by how you bring down your opponents or you put down rebellions. It is also how efficient, from the positive side, how effective and efficient you are. We need to transform our state to become an effective state. Hitherto, we have now a weak state in terms of service delivery, in terms of delivering. How do we build a state? How do we transform our society and state into effectiveness? Is it through these elections, which was really not so necessary, or is it through these ministerial excitements we are having, appointing people with questionable backgrounds, and who may have no idea about how, for example, a state is transformed from ineffectiveness to effectiveness. They are just talking about the manifesto as if the manifesto stands for everything. That manifesto was just a political statement for getting political votes. It is not the blueprint for transforming a state into an effective state. Of planners, how can you start saying you are planning to go and buy a machine to produce oxygen when the pandemic was here more than 15 months? Not only a year. It was in Uganda by March of 2020. It is now almost 17 months since. And you are planning to go and buy the oxygen machine.
Well, Professor, right over there, Ugandans this time around seem to be serious, but again, the state itself, like you stated somewhere, seems to be behind the reluctance of the public, because like yesterday and yesterday but one, there's a certain video circulating where alleged Minister of Health Workers were burying an empty coffin, or were burying a dog, and the public, I think was in Eastern, were furious. We wanted to know what was in the casket, only to open with empty casket, and this has caused questions. It has generated questions amongst Ugandans. Is it how much the COVID is there, but how serious is the state to the extent that they are burying empty coffins instead of sensitizing and enlightening the public about?
I've not watched that video, so I cannot authoritatively talk about it, but I know in Uganda anything can happen. So somebody may have concocted that it's a story that so and so, somebody has died, then solicited for funds in order to go and bury a ghost, so that he can get those funds for going to bury the ghost.
There were police officers guarding the ministry,
officials.
Where they stop? So
that was, if that is true, it is a wake-up call to the government, and it shows how morally low we have sunk, that people can solicit for funds to go and bury a ghost. So we have been used to ghost workers, which meant that the worker is not there. Now we have ghost dead bodies. So we are burying shadow bodies. But maybe that was an innovation. So we have become innovative in corruption. So our innovation is not in discovering vaccines, but in corruption. Because if that is a true story, how can that one really happen? And that is an indicator of a weak state, really. A weak state in the sense that even if some people innovated negatively and they bought coffins and started asking money from the state coffers, that is lack of supervision. Somebody who did that knew that there is no supervision. There is no clear supervision and coordination. Really, that is an extreme example, an illustration of how the state is weak. And people should not dance around in positions of responsibility without responsibility and claim that they are workers, that they will work, and that they are efficient under such circumstances. So I wish that video could be saturated more and be presented to Parliament to graphically demonstrate how the state is weak. If that one can be done, to bury a ghost after you have been paid a certain amount of money, it means that the pandemic can finish us in such a weaknesses. You remember last year, when the pandemic happened and there was a total lockdown, the immediate challenge we had was actually corruption. You remember, the thing that we still remember was that people were supplying rotten beans and posho and even no posho and all that. So how can we dance around and joke around with the lives of the people? How much more will it be if it is another thing that is not of immediate scale, if we can joke around this pandemic? I saw that time when there were donations, people were donating vehicles and vehicles and vehicles and vehicles. Right now, these ambulances.
Ugandans are asking where are these vehicles?
No, you see what we see in the media, that the cancer patients, Bambi, the cancer patients, either those who there are those who are stranded, who have not come for their next checkup, but even those who have come for their checkup, they cannot go home. So where did those ambulances go? Where did those vehicles we saw being donated disappear? If they are not going to assist such a cancer patients who are terminally ill, and they bring about a picture of of sympathy and empathy. Where did our empathy and sympathy campus go if, for example, such cancer patients cannot be transported to the hospital and back home? And it's not very many people. You just get a few vans. Moreover, cancer patients are not necessarily, although they are terminally ill, they are not necessarily so weak that they even need a real ambulance. You can get any van just from Kabare and you come picking at every district headquarters all the people from Southwestern. You get from Marua, they pick everybody from that region. You get one from Moroto, it picks anybody from that region. You get one from Basaka, and like that. And you pick them to Murago as you take them back again. But that one it can only be done when there is an effective coordinated state. But we are here dancing, you know, appointing another minister, then today we add on another minister. Ministers for what now if we have such inefficiencies of the state? So we should not be looking at how to balance ethnic groups, how to balance recruitment of ministers and the cabinet with different religions and different regions and different cadres and different whatever, and you are adding every day, and the whole attention is about recruiting those fellas, when we have got a state that has not transformed into an effective state.
Yes, Professor, there are some Ugandans who were calling and begging the government to reinstate second lockdown. In your view, do you think Uganda is ready for the second lockdown, and can we sustain the economy if so happens?
Well, the economy has already come down very drastically. There is no economy actually to talk about right now. But the second lockdown, I can see it in the offing, depending on the rate of infections. But as of now, maybe I heard the president talking about why this pandemic had been contained and why it has come up, and he seemed to be indicating that it came down because of effectiveness of the state, the measures of the state, the lockdowns and the rest. But I think, yes, those contributed, but the biggest contributory factor, I think, was weather. It was weather because we had a very high incidences around November, December, January, when we had a wet season. And then when somehow it became dry, it did come down. Then it recently flared up because we had a lot of rains, and it was mostly in areas which had a wet season. Now that almost the whole country has a dry season, my expectation is that it is going to come down. Not to disappear, but it is going to come down. And therefore, we should be slow on clamping down on a lockdown. We're hoping against hope that this new weather, the dry season, may reduce the transmission, in addition to, of course, observing SOPs, such that we postpone the lockdown. Because the lockdown can also spread it, by the way. There are people who will be so desperate to do certain desperate measures that may include spreading it. When somebody has nothing to eat and has COVID-19, he will say, I would rather die of COVID-19 rather than dying of hunger. And think that those desperate measures shouldn't be taken. However, I think what the measures have been done should continue, and there should be more sensitization of people to observe SOPs as we watch whether this weather is helping us. Because I suspect that the weather has something to do with the coming down or the flaring up. Because even in Europe, the waves, first, second, and third waves, were kind of following the weather pattern. When it was cold, it was more. When it was dry, it was coming down.
The summertime.
We have a caller. Let's hear from him. Hello, good morning. This is Mukose, Arnold, Anton with Lilian hosting Professor Ndebesa Mwambutsya.
Yes, good morning, people. And I wish to thank you for hosting Professor Ndebesa. My name is Norman.
We are humbled, Mr. Norman.
I have seen the Professor Ndebesa, for lack of another word, overusing the word unnecessary election. Does he mean that all this money that was spent on to conducting the previous election should have been channeled on to fighting COVID, just because in his view that this was more or less a predetermined election, or he's saying it in good faith that perhaps we should have postponed, fight COVID, and then come back and have elections? Secondly, I have for so long read about capitalism and also a battle between nutritionists and the pharmacists. Could this disease be a strategy for both theorists to make money? That the pharmacists want to also make money, claiming to be making medicine, and also nutritionists supporting their idea that you have to have the food that can boost their immunity, what it takes, or about these two theories, the pharmacists and nutritionists. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Norman. Professor, you've heard him.
Yes, I've heard him. He asked about 3 questions. In case I forget, you remind me. But starting with the first one.
The political one.
The political one. Elections is necessary, but there is a time when the state or decision makers have to make priorities. And these priorities must be for the good, for the public good of the greater majority. And in my opinion, the decision to have elections was misplaced in terms of priorities. The priority should have been saving whatever little we had in order to contain COVID-19. Because I don't think that if we didn't have these elections, we would have died.
True.
And there are many countries out there that have postponed this election, the elections. And therefore, this election was not a priority. To say that it was not a priority does not mean that it was not necessary. But I'm saying, weighing the two priorities, opportunity costs, we should have concentrated on saving funds for buying the vaccine. And then when we contain the virus, we would have the elections. Now, turning on the conspiracy theories about whether those who... Pharmaceutical companies, I think not pharmacies, but pharmaceutical companies. Pharmaceutical companies wanting to sell their products and therefore heightening the tension about COVID-19. My take, I'm not a scientist, but my take is that at least COVID-19 kills, and it has killed people worldwide. Whether the pharmacists will always take advantage of the situation, because that is capitalism. Nevertheless, the point remains is that COVID-19 is a global threat. It is now a domestic threat here in Uganda. And so the issues of conspiracy theories should not take our thinking, our reasoning, our time. Let's now think about containing COVID-19, whether pharmacists had some mischief or didn't have mischief. To me, that is beside the point. The third one was related, what was it saying?
Actually, he had 2 questions, only that he was trying to elaborate it.
To elaborate on the same. So there are very many conspiracy theories, including the Americans think that it was made in a laboratory, not necessarily by pharmaceutical companies, but maybe by...
As a weapon.
As a weapon, because we know that at times viruses are used as a weapon. We do not know. whether it was by accident in the process of making something and it went berserk and went out of control, whatever there was the cause, whatever was the origin, all we know in Africa, we should concentrate on containing the spread of the virus, because we have no capacity even to go and find out whether it came from a laboratory or not. That is an irrelevant debate for us. It is a relevant debate for those who have the capacity to find out. For us, we don't even have the capacity to buy the vaccine and later on distribute it.
The capacity to ask where it is.
So why do we bother to find out whether it was done in a laboratory? Those are conspiracy theories that should not take our time. Our time should be concentrated on putting pressure on our government to be effective and to make decisions, priorities that are for the greater good of the greater majority. Not the greater good, not the good for a few. Like the other time when I heard the president even talking about giving out jobs, there is rampant unemployment everywhere, and then he is thinking about giving jobs even to the rich, the sons and daughters of the rich people.
For you the poor, you corrupt.
And to assume, by the way, that one, I respectfully disagree with President Museveni. I have not had a theory even anywhere to say that it is the poor who are corrupt. Because even under under capitalism and under that materialism, which materialist theory or materialist approach of things, it does not show that the more the people become rich, the less they become moral. I think when you look at the moral economy, this is not the political economy, he needs to do some study about moral economy. When you look at the moral economy of society, actually it is those capitalists, those very rich people who become even more hungry for more. But in any case, in terms of affirmative action, I thought we would be giving jobs to the sons and daughters of the regions which have lagged behind, or for those who are poor, in order to lift them up, not do it the other way around and continue the gap between the rich and the poor widening every other day. I think that needs to be debated. Let the president come up again with that theory. Let him provide the forum and space for us to debate the history of capitalism and the history of the moral economy. And we find out whether the more you become poorer, the more you become immoral.
Or vice versa.
Or vice versa. He has been castigating the West, and the West is rich.
Aware of the NAS.
They are aware of the NAS, and he is now saying for them they are okay. They are not necessarily okay because they are necessarily rich, but it is because they have got effective states. It is not because those people in the West don't want to be immoral and corrupt. It is because the price of corruption is very high, but not only the price, but also effectiveness. There is the state effectiveness. Gradually changes, impacts, shapes the behavior. So the behavior there has been shaped by the state effectiveness. When you have an effective state, you have laws, formal laws, and you follow formal laws, unlike here where we have informal laws and informal ways of doing things. At the end of the day, you cannot hold accountable informal power. Here we have got a lot of informal power under the patronage system, and you cannot hold informal power. I have heard people jubilating this and that. We also have a prime minister, we also have a vice president, we also have a minister. Power political inclusiveness is not necessarily arithmetical. It is algebraical, in the sense that it is not the person, it is not how many people that are in positions of power that shape issues and allocate resources and values. It depends upon the power that person holds. So you may have 10 ministers shaping nothing, but one minister shapes everything. You may have a vice president who is supposed to be in a position of high power, but you find his personal assistant shapes the issues. He even fears, or she fears, the personal assistant. The personal assistant can determine whether you are in that position or not. And that is why we are talking about algebra. Algebra, when you have got 2x plus 8y, you cannot determine the value of 2x vis-a-vis the value of 8y unless you know the value of x and the value of y. Right. So that is why I'm talking about power being algebraic, not arithmetical. So even those people who are demanding for more ministers, they may not even need those ministers. They may demand for their voice to be heard. I mean, for example, let's take the example of Kasese. You just forget Kasese, it is not visible on your radar, and then all of a sudden, because people said, hey, there was nobody in Kasese, you say we put somebody there. That means that somebody will not have visibility and power, since you were remembered as, by the way, oh, so we also didn't give you a minister. That means you are not visible on the radar. So you didn't need that minister anyway. You could have had even a personal assistant from there in a certain position in the government, which allocates resources, which allocates values. It's not a question of having somebody in a place or many people in a place. Like, say, let's illustrate using gender. Yes, it is good to have many women in positions of responsibility so that they are visible and they can encourage the young women also to aspire. That is positive. But it does not follow that because you have got many women there, therefore women have power. No. Like in Rwanda, women in parliament are more than men, but the power is held by men. Kagame has got more power than anybody else, and maybe even other friends of his. So that's why we are, unless you address patriarchy as a norm, and and you can address it in many ways than one. But even when you are appointing those women in positions of responsibility, you should use algebra, not arithmetic. It's not a question of having more women. It's a question of having women who are feminists. Women who, you appoint a woman who is already an activist, who has demonstrated that he is pro-gender equality. Otherwise, you could have a woman who is actually against gender equality there. So power and politics is not arithmetical. It is algebraical. And the sooner the better that people understand that power issues are algebraical. They are not arithmetical. Having 81 ministers doesn't mean much. You could have 21 ministers and they become more effective and efficient than 81. The 81 is just kugumaza. It's just hoodwinking the people that, we also have somebody. You can have somebody. You can have an army commander who is a general. But more of the allocation of power, resources, and values is done by a captain, not by the general. Okay. But for psychological purposes, you could say, okay, we also have a general from our place. Good enough. We also have a woman. And then you relax. No more feminist struggles because you have women arithmetically rather than algebraically. Yes. And we're spending a lot of money on administrative costs, given the fact that you have a very big cabinet and then a big parliament as well. Not only cabinet and parliament. You are just pointing out those which are more visible, more administrative centers. Every day, more miracles are created, gomborolas are created, more masazas are split, districts are split. Small trading centers are becoming cities. City for what? Just for a show, Gumaza. Now that Moroti is a city, or which other city? have we created?
We have Jinja, we have Masaka.
Nakasongora, I don't know what, they are cities, so what? Not even people have noticed that they are cities. So when you make Masaka a city, or you make Soroti a city, or Jinja a city, does it bring back the factories that were there? It is the factories that had transformed Jinja and transformed the lives of the people in Jinja, not the name of the city, because the name is just a name of city status and just exciting people that you have now an RCC, I don't know, you have got a road mayor, and so what. We should be transforming the state for effective delivery of goods and services. And that's where the concentration should be. And that's where our investment should be. Not investing in appointing people, more. So all these administrative costs, if they were channeled towards research and development, for example, because research and development has got higher returns in production, say agriculture or even industry, than just these other expenditures we are seeing, that you just have a parish model and you are just going to throw money to development and just spread money so that people can see that the government is giving us money instead of giving us capacities, because that money is going to be spread thinly on the ground and it is going to be given to people. They are going to be fighting over it. There is going to be a lot of administrative costs to distribute that money. Instead, that money, even if it was a Polish model, in my opinion, it should have been spent on common resource capacities for the different parishes. You could see how to have a tractor if it is an agricultural area, or any other machine that can handle situations in that area, or it could be value addition, in the sense that you could even have now a store. If it is an agricultural area, you have a store in every parish. If it is in animal production areas, you have cooling plants. You have got as many cooling plants in different areas where people can take their milk, but not just going to spread money thinly on the ground to excite the peasants. Now 30 million in a parish. 30 million in a parish. What transformation will it make in the lives of the people? But if that 30 million was concentrated on infrastructure, like those I have just mentioned, on creating capacity for transformation of society collectively, so that you have a collective good. Like 30 million can build, by the way, good stores in upcountry areas, so that people's goods are do not get perished. Or you can say 30 million can buy a maize milling machine, as long as you manage it very well. That is value addition, and you pack, and therefore the maize lasts longer. People will not be encumbered by selling their maize before it is attacked by these weevils. That is how transformation should have taken place. But you see, maybe those ones are not so visible enough to get political support for the regime. So the logic was regime maintenance, not societal transformation. So it needed also reviewing, because I'm told we are moving away from the Operation Wealth Creation, the way it has been operated, to the parish model. But nobody reviewed Operation Wealth Creation and then recommended the way forward. Just as we didn't review the original NADS program of getting rid of extension services. We never reviewed extension services. We had this privatized extension service kind of, which failed. So the government extension service is said to have failed. No review. We went to the private one. It failed. No review. Operation Wealth Creation. No evaluation. No review. We are now going to parish model. This is developing programs and policies just by whims of individuals or whatever, not based on any scientific analytical evaluation. To evaluate is to weigh. You weigh different options. So which option did we weigh against the parish model? Because we should have said, okay, there is a parish model of giving out money to individuals, but maybe there is a parish model of constructing capacities which could be used as corrective goods, like say an irrigation system that can be used collectively, or a goods store that can be used collectively, or a cooling plant, or any other. I'm just giving some examples because different regions have different necessities. But we didn't allow things to do that. There was no bottom-up approach. It is a top-down approach. People are not consulted. It is assumed everybody is ignorant. That's why they are not in the commercial sector. And you just come from the above and you say, for us, we have a correct line. Have the correct line. Now the correct line becomes crooked. Then you say, we have seen another correct line. Then it does this. We just move like in Uganda, we are moving like a pendulum. A pendulum moves this direction very up and then comes down and goes up. Then it comes down to where it was. It goes up and we continue marking time. Instead of sitting down, harness different ideas, because there is an assumption that there are no ideas from other people, only those who are in power. It seems as if having power means you are more a strategic thinker than those who are not in power, which is wrong. We should harness different viewpoints, different ideas, different debates, and before a policy change, there should be a review of the old one and evaluation. And evaluation, as the name suggests, it comes from to value. To weigh value. We did have different options.
In comparison with what you want to introduce and what has been happening.
What has been happening. And even what you want to introduce, you can have 3 options. And then look at advantages and disadvantages of each option. But nobody at all, unless there is somebody who can come and convince me, nobody debated the parish model. It just came from the blue because somebody went and dreamt, like Idi Amin dreamt, that he would send away the Indians and Uganda would be okay. So somebody went and dreamt that there is a parish model of distributing money to individuals. Distributing money to individuals makes only political sense. That when somebody gets 10,000 shillings from government, he will feel endeared to the government because he got 10,000. 10,000 which does not even buy a chicken. 10,000 which does not buy a chicken. Instead of having a machine that can make, for example, chicken feeds, that can process chicken feeds in a certain area, and then people can use their money to access those chicken feeds. That is the way to go, not spread money thinly on the ground. And we have had policies, different schemes. There was Ntandikwa, there was Bonaba Gagaware, there was Operation Wellness Creation, there was all those things to do with NADS. There have been very many.
Now Myoga.
Myoga is now being forgotten before it starts. And I thought Myoga was about skilling, but now it turned out to be distribution of money. Then we have circles. Circles are supposed to be savings and credit associations or something like that. Savings, basically. But now circles are just channels through which government can give money, and people start them or found them opportunistically to tap money. And they know there is free money from government that you can eat, and nobody will talk about you, because if he does, you will threaten them that you will not vote them. So now those are not savings cooperatives. Those are not savings cooperatives. How does a savings cooperative turn out to be a place where the government is going to push money, to inject money? instead of teaching people how to save and invest in production, it is now opportunistic centers, channels through which patronage will be promoted. And patronage is the worst cancer in Africa. Having patrons and clients and not having formal processes based on principles, based on known ways of doing things, rather than using centers for having a client and a patronage for mobilization of political support.
A lot of people were complaining about Myuga that they didn't receive the money. But
well, there are those who received.
Minister Kasolo said Myuga was a success.
Okay, let him see. You know, let's measure success from a broad point of view. Some time back, there was a target, Uganda to be a middle-income country by 2020. We are now in the middle of 2021.
It's a year past.
It is now a more than a year past. We are not in anywhere being a middle-income country. And let's not talk about COVID, because 2020.
COVID is just 2 years old. Okay, let's say 2 years.
Not yet 2 years. Because 2020 passed before COVID came, and we had not reached the middle-income status. Tanzania, by the way, moved very fast and became a middle-income status.
And it was
country.
It was not during COVID.
Well, they had achieved it before COVID, because you don't calculate just in 1 month. It was already done before. And we have the potential to become a middle and even an upper middle income country, because we have got good climate, we have got good soils, we have minerals. Now Uganda earns from gold. Don't ask me whether some gold might be coming from some other quarters, but gold earnings to Uganda, revenue to Uganda has now surpassed agriculture. People don't know. But when you look at tax returns, how much we have taxed that gold, you don't see it. It means there is patronage there, and some people are exporting gold without passing through the right channels. And that cannot develop the country now in terms of GDP, because we need the country to tax those people, and we get resources for public sector investment that will spur technology development and other things in the country. But we don't have money for public sector investment because we don't even tax effectively. Many people out there who are listening do not know one thing, that Uganda lags behind the rest of East Africa in terms of tax collection. Yes, we might be crying that we are overtaxed. It is because the tax burden falls on very few people. Otherwise, in terms of tax collection, in terms of the GDP ratio, Uganda is the worst performer. Uganda Revenue Authority is the worst performer in the region. Maybe we are not talking about Burundi, that is a basket case. But in terms of Kenya, which collects more than 21% of their GDP, Tanzania collects about 18%, Rwanda collects about 16, 15, Uganda is still at 12, 13. Yeah. Of our GDP. I'm not talking about the overall money that is collected, because Kenya is rich. By the way, for your information, the listeners out there, Kenya's budget this year was $34 billion. That is Kenya. Uganda is 12 point something. So Kenya's budget is almost 3 times, more than 3 times, almost 3 times larger than Uganda. And yet the population of Kenya and that one of Uganda are not far from each other.
Yes.
Remember that? Yeah. So you can see how poor we are in relation to Kenya. That their total budget is 34 billion US dollars. Yeah. Uganda is 12, and yet the population of Kenya is nearer to that of Uganda. Maybe Tanzania's population is slightly higher, but even Tanzania's budget was over 15 million US dollars, compared to Uganda's 12 billion. So we are poor.
Yeah, yes, Professor, at 14 minutes to the top of the show, I have sad news, though not confirmed. The chairman LC5 Kayunga, Fefe Kasserobogo, has committed suicide. Oh. So it's a sad note, Fefe Kasserobogo, if it's true, because
confirmed.
I'm seeing a lot in my inbox, and those who are sending are credible sources. So
very unfortunate.
We are waiting. Fefe Kasserobogo, the LC5 chairman of Kayunga, has committed suicide. Though reasons are not yet clear, but we shall get to know later on of the day.
Allegedly committed suicide. Yes. I think we put it that way because he could be murdered. He could have been murdered and then camouflaged as suicide.
Suicide, yeah.
But let's wait.
Yeah. Professor, as we almost reaching at the top of the show, we got cabinet, and the public seems to have lost confidence in the cabinet. And we would love you to join President Museveni's statement of his concern about the mainland, because since we don't have enough time, the mainland issue from President Museveni together with the new cabinet. What are expectations of the new cabinet?
Well, the new cabinet is going to supply us more of the same. We have not seen a fundamental change, and we have had ministers shuffled here and there. We have new ministers. We don't know the criteria the appointing authority used. But from his point of view, at least the one made public is that he was looking for fishermen and fisherwomen. In other words, he said he was looking for people who are activists in the NRM, the yellow girls, the yellow boys, those who will follow in what President Moi's time would say, Fatanyayo, and not those who are going to transform the state from an ineffective state to an effective state. And he used that analogy of the Bible. He needs to be reminded that although Jesus went for those 12 apostles from the lake and from the rural setting, and that they were not there like the Pharisees who were educated or whatever, he left out the educated, the likes of the Zibambis. He needs to know, if he wants to read his Christianity very well, that actually the single most person, apart from Jesus, who is the leader of Christianity, the single most person who spread Christianity, which would possibly not have been possible, was St. Paul. And St. Paul was more or less in the current situation. He was a professor.
And where?
He was among those Pharisees, by the way, persecuting Christianity, but when he transformed in terms of disposition, in terms of attitude,
from Saul to Paul,
says to Paul, but having the basics, you know, he was not a simple from Saul to Paulo who did not have basic knowledge. He was very knowledgeable, and I think out of the 27 books of the New Testament, he contributes about 3/3. And when you look at the spread of Christianity away from Israel to Asia Minor up to Europe, it was a work of Paul. So do not underrate the knowledge, do not underrate education, because Paul spread Christianity more than any other apostle. He is also an apostle in a way. He was appointed when Jesus had already died, but you see, Jesus, according to Christianity, has powers. He did, and the Holy Spirit. They converted now the Pharisee. So it is the Pharisee who actually performed better. So President Museveni could have found some Pharisee who converted, the one who is knowledgeable, who at least knows a thing or two about effective state. Because what we need today is transforming Uganda into an effective and efficient state. Now, The current cabinet is going to give us more of the same. It is a bloated cabinet, and it is going to continue giving us what we have been given. Your other question was?
The President's comment and concerns about the Mailo land. It doesn't see any sense in the Mailo tenure system of land.
You see, the Mailo system, the Mailo land tenure system was introduced by the British in 1900. In a way, it was progressive then. It could have been progressive if they had implemented it very well. It was progressive capitalism, of course disregarding the rights of the peasants and ordinary people, but it had given land that value, that capital value. You know, capital is defined as something that can be used to create more capital. It is a resource that creates more resources. So communal land is not capital, as in the sense, or it's not good capital as private capital. So in a way, it was a revolution to create capital, to create land and give it a capital value, and it could be used as a resource to create more resources. But the way it was done is the one which brought in problems, in the sense that it is land that was being occupied by other people who since then became tenants. And that complicates the tenure system within this region, and it can make the economy lag behind. As far as the president is concerned, it is spoiling his politics also. So he is looking at the Mailo land tenure system challenges as from the lens of politics, spoiling his politics. But I would urge him to change from that and look at the challenges of the Mailo land system in respect of economic performance, how it is kind of making economic transformation lag behind. And let's have shared ideas, shared genuinely, in good faith. Let's have a commission, not this one of Makerere, which was set up in order to come up with recommendations that would fit into the thinking of the appointing authority. Let's have the different actors. There is Mengo as an actor. By the way, it is not true that Mailo land is only in Buganda. There is Mailo land, but on a small scale in Busoga. There is Mailo land in Bunyoro. There was Mailo land even in Ankore. It is still there under the Omugabe, the king. Only that the kingdom is not. It
was destroyed.
It is not there. And there are some chiefs also who received that Mailo land. But gradually it became relevant. It is no longer practical there in that region. Yes, there are challenges of Mailo land tenure system. And we should look at them not only from the political human rights angle, although we should, but we should also look at them from the economic angle. And the discussion should not be encumbered by sentiments and emotions. You know, Mengo has its own emotions about Mailo land that have less to do with the economic performance. They have something to do more with identity. Now, let the president also not use Mailo land for purposes of political mobilization, because he looks at it in respect of political mobilization, that maybe when you give the land to certain people, then they will support you, they will be against Nup, or they will be against Mengo, or something like that. Let's soberly, without emotions, open up the debate, and we see how this land tenure system can be transformed, not necessarily away from being called Mailo land, but how the nature. You see, as I told you, Mailo land itself was a revolutionary act to create capital, if you support capitalism. But the nature of that capital, of that land capital, of that private land, was the one that complicated things and made and stifled development. So we can still revisit Mailo land in good faith on all sides, and see how it can be maintained as Mailo land, because there are people who look at it with sentiments and emotions. It is an identity, and identities are very important. Even the president has got certain things he supports based on identity. The other day he was telling us for him with cows, that is the identity of his sub-ethnic group, and that's why he has very many cows, very few other crops. I don't think he has grown potatoes anywhere. Have you had him growing potatoes or beans? But he has continued the heritage of his parents. So the Baganda may have taken up Mailo land as their heritage, but heritage should serve man also. It should not be just for the sake of it, and it becomes a source of conflicts in the region. Because after all, it has been complicated. It's not only about Baganda anyway. How many people are evicting people who are not Baganda? Because there are people who are being evicted from Mailo land who are not necessarily Baganda. So we need to debate this issue soberly, without emotions, having in mind the principle of using that land as capital, as something that can create more wealth for the people. So it is the nature of Mailo land, not necessarily Mailo land, that is a problem. Can that nature be transformed? Yes. How can it be transformed? It can only be transformed by a statesman and a stateswoman, not a politician. The politician is looking at getting support out of either abolishing it or doing something about it. A statesman would be looking at it in terms of transforming Mailo land, not necessarily abolishing it, so that it is effective capital and reduces conflicts, because these conflicts could easily turn into violent conflicts, which we do not want. But you are not going to go and make declarations and proclamations that we are going to abolish Mailo land. Actually, Idi Amin had abolished it. Idi Amin abolished Mailo land for 10 years or so. But it was revived, and he never even removed the titles from people and things like that. So we have to tackle it in such a manner that we transform it without necessarily abolishing it. In the case people have attachment to it, sentimental and emotional and otherwise, but it is not supposed to be done away by proclamations, by declarations, and by force or in bad faith, just appointing somebody to a position of Mailo land administration because you know that person is necessarily against it. No, it should be somebody who is a strategic thinker and can see Mailo land from different dimensions, including economic development, including conflict resolution, including conflict management. Okay, politics, because he's a politician, he can continue with politics, but proclamation and declarations to abolish Mailo land will not augur well for the national integration of Uganda, because we have a weak state which needs to be transformed into a strong state.
The public worry is the spirit and the faith in which the president might have uttered the statement, given the fact that during the 1995 constitutional speech, he said the constitution was good apart from the issue and laws related to land. So when he brings it up, where do you see is it in good faith?
I think he could be having good faith and bad faith at the same time. Good faith in the sense that Mailo land has encumbrances. That one everybody should admit, even those who support Mailo land, that it has encumbrances. The nature of that Mailo land needs to be reviewed without necessarily abolishing it. So in that case, I think he has good faith. The bad faith is when he looks at it in relation to his opponents. Says, I lost the elections because of Mailo land. Now you see the angle from which he's coming from, losing elections. So you can easily abolish it just because you are not given political support. In other words, if he had won elections, as far as he's concerned, there would not be problem of Mailo land, which is wrong. That is wrong. You could still have won elections. In any case, he has been winning elections in Buganda with Mailo land. So that is beside the point. Let's not politicize it in the sense that we look at it in terms of winning elections or losing elections. He has been making those statements in relation. I lost elections, you know. So he's disturbed by losing elections in Uganda, and he's looking at Mailo land as a central issue of why he lost elections. You can lose elections, you can even deliberately, if you are a statesman, you can even deliberately come up with a policy to emancipate people, but that policy needs to be dialogued, not just declared as this is this, this is this. You need to soberly debate it. Let's have alternatives. Let those who support Mailo land tell us how that Mailo land is going to transform society in terms of economic transformation. Let them tell us also how it has brought about issues of social justice or social injustice or inequality, because we have to address it from the inequality point of view and social justice and address it that way. And let the other side also give us why they want Mailo land. But of course, when they say it is because we lost elections, then they would have lost the battle and the argument. Because the other group will also be rigid. Now it will be battlefield. Oh, it's because of elections, so we shall also not yield. I am also not going to yield. And where are we going to end? We need to build a state. We need to build a nation. And to do that, we need to be statesmen who look at the next generation, not the next elections. But this business of getting worked up by Mailo land because we have lost elections is very dangerous, by the way, because the other group can also react in a similar way, and we shall now have another Buganda versus Uganda. And we wouldn't want to have that situation again, because it cost us political stability in 1966. We don't want to have another crisis here again, because people are looking at the next elections, not the next generation. So let everybody put his views on table, and let's have the actors, respect all actors, discuss it, and let the superior argument win without encumbrances of elections or no elections.
It has been a great pleasure hosting and tapping into the knowledge of the professor. We are humbled that whenever we call upon him, he has appreciated and acknowledged the innovation and the brains of the youth. We are so grateful that people of his age, experience, and have seen it all give us time. We are really precious and treasure his time. So, Professor, as you wind up, your last word to the audience and the followers.
The audience out there, please become citizens, not subjects. I have said this before, even on this forum, and I'm saying it again. There is a difference between a citizen and a subject. A subject is that person, he or she, who is always on the receiving end. It doesn't matter. Waits for commands, waits for others to make decisions, waits for everything to be brought. And for him, he will just be a good citizen and be there and only complain when he's eating his supper or her supper. A citizen will be very active in participating in public affairs, whether it is at the communal level, church level, neighborhood level, national level, local government level. Let us not leave public affairs to only the politicians. Public affairs, if we leave them to the politicians, they are going to spoil this nation. They have spoiled this nation before, and as citizens, not subjects, we should not allow them spoil our country, because for them they have already used their offices to amass wealth. The president told us the other day that for him the NRA originals only those people shaping the future of Uganda to those people is actually abandoning our duty and responsibility. Let us all be citizens. Wherever you are, wherever you will be going, let nobody intimidate you. Tell them that you are a citizen. You are not here. You are not a refugee. You are not a foreigner. You have all the rights like anybody has, and nobody should claim that he owns this nation and looks at you with wide eyes and intimidates you, and he says, you go, I am going to go to the kitchen and cook for you. There is nobody that should be only in the kitchen. Let us all go to the kitchen. Uganda belongs to all. Let nobody out there claim that he's more Ugandan than other Ugandans. We are all citizens. We want to partake in policy making, in decision making, and whoever wants to dominate us should be resisted. I am saying this seriously. Ugandans have become meek, have just decided to go and sleep, and yet they don't even sleep. Because when you are hungry, when you don't have school fees, when you don't have land, you equally don't sleep.
They go to bed, but they don't sleep.
You go to bed, going to bed as he has put it, does not necessarily having sleep. So please, come out of those beds and tell the truth to power and demand that we should all have this country called Uganda as our project. Nobody should claim that it is his project, that tomorrow I will decide and I will give jobs to only people who went to the bush. What kind of reasoning is that? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Prof. Thank you, Joe, for watching. Innocent Ainebiona, my question to Prof. Could there be a limit to how much worse COVID-19 variants can get? That's the question. My question to Prof is, could there be a limit to how much worse COVID-19 variants can get? I think he answered.
No, that question should have been asked to a scientist, to ask it to a historian. Because I don't know even the variants of COVID. I also hear them. By the way, COVID is, we should actually call it COVID-19. That is COVID that was discovered in 2019. An implication that there are very many COVIDs. This is COVID-19, but there are other COVIDs. Forget about COVID-19 variants. These ones he's talking about are COVID-19 variants. But there are even other COVIDs. If you go to these animals and you test them or test us in many ways, there is a lot of COVID here. COVID virus is everywhere. There are very many types of COVID viruses. This was COVID-19. And the variants are of COVID-19. As to how many will evolve, I am not a professor of science. I don't know how it evolves. We are likely to have even a worse variant than this one, because this one passes through the saliva and things like that. We could have a COVID-19 variant that might just be spread through the air. In other words, somebody breathes and somebody who is in 10 meters catches COVID-19. It is a possibility that we could have that variant. So the issue that the question that should be put clearly now should not be how many variants are going to evolve. It is how prepared are we to survive those different variants. Preparation in terms of cure, to preparation in terms of prevention, preparation in terms of mindsets, preparation in terms of organization of the state. Because the state is the central organ or institution of people that can do a lot to save us from the spread of COVID-19. So do we have an effective and efficient state? Or do we have a state that is planning to go and buy an oxygen machine? planning to go and buy an oxygen machine when the thing has been here for more than 17 months.
It has gone out of hand.
I'm being serious, really.
Atumereho Alex, thank you so much for watching. When an expert like Professor Mwambutysa Ndebesa is opinionating on the subject he understands best, I just watch keenly and listen with humility. Tumhim Senoman, thank you for watching. Tad Katerega, you have made my day. Ahmed Ntege, instead of demanding services, they are demanding ministers. Mariam M. Musoke, thanks for the show. Thank you. Most comments are thanking. Let me take this opportunity to thank Professor for the time he has given us, and thank you to everyone who has commented, everyone who has shared. It has been a very, very nice show. My name is Princess Luwedde Lilian. My co-host is Mr. Mukose Arnold Anthony. On camera is Mr. Rogers Tulehabwe, and the producer is Miss Elizabeth Musitwa. Thank you very much. Tomorrow we are having Professor Kanyihamba on the show, so you don't have to miss. Let me wish you a very nice day. Good morning.
Alternative Dig Talk.